Are you ready to save our kids? If children are the living messages that we send to a time that we will not see, Save Our Kids is an opportunity for you to be introduced to a few school and student helpers that will support each child's individual journey. If there is a space or a place to improve the lives of our children, we know a few families and business owners who have made it their business to answer the call for help and provide a solution to those quietly discussed challenges that impact our children and eventually us all. We could not just choose one kiddo to save, so we are asking for your help to reach more. Join Keeping Your Kids Safe as we identify some of the problems and share a few solutions that have been created just for you. Hello.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm well, thanks. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm so happy that you're here because that's I mean, I'm excited about that. Oh my gosh, I done kept your thing up. I'm sorry. Um, yeah, I'm very happy to have you here because I know these are definitely conversations that a lot of people are interested in, and we're just going to keep the momentum going.
Thank you. No, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm very glad you asked me on.
Awesome. So thank you very much for spending your time with me today. I'm very excited about some of the information you're going to be able to share that will be able to support other families and on their journey. So I also like to say I always like to start with thanking all of those educators, all those parents, all those students. At the end of the day, we are all part of an ecosystem that is, has a very delicate balance, and we need additional members in our families and in our community that are going to help support us. That is going to be our teachers, and anyone in our community. So I want to say thank you. This is an opportunity for us to share our concerns and challenges, and offer a solution for those who are looking for it. So before we can ever work towards any of our solutions, we do have to identify why we're doing what we're doing. So I will always start with the statistics so we understand where we are. And then I'll give you, oh no, how about we give you an opportunity to tell us what you do, who you are, tell the people all about you. Go.
Okay, thanks, Tabitha. My name is Teresa Edwards. I hope that doesn't, the absence of an A doesn't confuse anyone, but yes, it's actually pronounced Teresa Edwards. And I'm the founder and CEO of Teshley Solutions LLC, an education consulting firm. Um, I call it K through 12 through college survival skills and strategies, because as we all know, it's a journey, it's a process, and it can be exciting and valuable and rewarding. It can also be extremely challenging, as you well know. So I work mostly privately with families, but I do also support community organizations, and I have been reaching out to businesses to offer my services as part of their employee perks because again, while I want to help everyone that I can, and there are free resources on my website, it is a business. I do like to make money, and everyone, deserves an opportunity to have their child in the best position for success. And the world has changed a lot, and the benefits that people expect have changed. So it behooves companies to offer something a little bit different, because at the end of the day, if parents are concerned about their child being bullied at school, or something that you're familiar with, their child not getting home from school, being left on the bus, or how they're going to pay for college education, at the end of the day, that affects their bottom line. I mean, this whole thing with education has massive ripple effects.
Mhm.
And so, to your point, we really have to be all in this together. I started I've always been high on education. I was a a volunteer tutor for students in my local community. But the students didn't just come from my local community. It's a free tutoring program, and we sometimes had families that would come from 30, 40 miles away on a Saturday to get their kids the tutoring help that they needed. because they couldn't afford Sylvan or Huntington or whatever it was. So they were willing to take that drive, sometimes in the rain or snow, to do it. So it showed me how important education is to many families, that they were willing to do this. And then I also worked for my local school district for a while. So I was in that, and I really, through my own experience when my daughter was in school and through my employment with the school district, I started to appreciate that there were some misconceptions about how the whole process worked. It's not that the parents didn't love their kids and want to support their kids. It's just that they kind of felt, well, I'm sending my child to school and they'll take care of it. And schools just can't do it all. Again, to your point, we all have to play a role in this. So it is parents, it is the community, it is the schools, it's the churches, the synagogues, the mosques. Everyone has to play a part in this. So that's kind of really how I got started. And then going through the process with my daughter and my family and friends, and then working in the school district, and through tutoring, I made a lot of observations and mental notes. And then when that employment ended because of downsizing, I kind of said, I think this is the time to start this. And that's pretty much it. That's how this began.
So this is really good, right? Because first of all, I don't think that I realized that you were in were you a teacher?
No, I was the coordinator of volunteers and community outreach was my position. So
Oh,
that gave me the opportunity to work with, so I was in administration, so that gave me the opportunity not only to work with parents, but to work with the business community to solicit their help with the school district as well. So my tentacles kind of spread out in the community. My
awesome.
daughter is a teacher, however, but I am
This is
not.
amazing. I'm excited. So I didn't really realize, and like, so you never really can tell where people, what motivates people to do what they do, right? And it's just interesting, I guess, because you went through this process with your daughter, and you're like, wait a second, this cannot be. And that's where it would say the mother of all inventions is a need, right? It starts there.
Yeah, well, no, because my friends and I were talking when we were, particularly when we were going through the college application process. It's like, we're professional women. We've been reading contracts and reading and doing all of this stuff for years, for decades. But there are other people that whose children are just as worthy as ours, that may not understand this lingo, the process, the deadlines, the all of the things. And we were just saying, how do they get through this? Because it was daunting. It was not an easy experience.
All right. So, oh, that's cool. So, all right. So you're right in our conversation. Hey, Phil. Yes, we have Teresa here, and I'm telling you, Phil is a good guy to know because he's actually helping with the planning for those students into college. So this is great. All right. So thank you for that. I will make sure. So now it'll make sense, all of the numbers and things that I will talk about today. So, as always, we have to remember there's 49.4 million children that are enrolled into K through 12, fall of 2020 and 2021. That total enrollment is projected to decrease more than what it has already, to down to about 46.9 million, and that's going to be in the fall of 2031. So, if we take a look at that, the reason why I bring that up is very interesting, and for a very specific reason, because those numbers funnel into higher education. And like we talked to Kathy last week about the college enrollment, what in preparation and things like that, we also know that the enrollment is down for college enrollment, right? So there's a lot of people that are not, a lot of students who don't find the value in, having that, carrying that debt with not a clear line of sight to a position. So and then we take a look. So I just get the information from Best Colleges or NCES. So it says in the fall of 2023, almost 18.1 million students were enrolled in degree granting colleges and university, but about 15.2 million children or students. Ugh, my tongue is not working today. So
It's a Monday that's a Tuesday that's, yeah, don't worry
all,
about it.
it's all hot. So, so it tells you what the enrollment statuses are. So 15.2 million students are enrolled in undergraduate programs. Roughly 8.5 are pursuing a bachelor's degree. There are about 3.1 in graduate that are graduate students. And in 2022, about 62% of people who completed high school or earned a GED certificate immediately enrolled into college. So that's a 62% that they're saying that they're right after school, they're going straight into college. But I'm kind of concerned about where are the trade schools in all of this. But then let's talk a little bit about a couple other things that I noticed when I was doing the research for this. The demographics. Did you know women are enrolled more in school than men are?
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't realize that. I don't think that they did. And if they, I didn't know. How about that? I'll just talk about me. I didn't know that most of it was women. But then when you look at the demographics, it's very interesting how this works out. So you say 53% are white, 13% are black. But the one thing I like to do here is extend the math, because one of the things people are like, oh, that's great, right? But it really kind of isn't when you start to look at it. So we say for white enrollment, it's 6,182,000 plus. For black, it's 1.641, right? So it's 1,641,000 plus. That's just a little bit. So there's definitely a significant difference between the enrollments. The other part of that is that when I look at that, that's the other reason why I brought up women versus men. More women are seeking education, less men are not. And then the barrier to entry. So the barrier to entry is under preparation, tuition costs, institutional and systematic biases, and personal and non-academic barriers, right? So these are all the things I think we're going to kind of start to talk about here today, because they all play a role and a part in the safety of every child. When we're talking about saving our kids, we're talking about K through adulthood. We need them to be productive and contributing members of our society so that we can continue to progress. But if we don't offer them the ability to do that, how will they be able to do that? How will they be able to make that? So just based on the information that I gave today, or just the stats that I gave off, is there anything you'd like to share before I ask the first question and we'll start this conversation?
Yeah, well, you mentioned something earlier, which was, I should have mentioned, was another reason that caused me to go into this, is about the debt. And one of the things left out in your stats, it's the mindset that has been heaved upon society in terms of rankings and with the colleges. You have so many people believing that if they do not go to an Ivy League or a top tier school, that they have no reasonable expectation of success, which causes them to select a school that perhaps they cannot afford and may not even offer excuse me, what it is that they really want, just because they're going solely based on those numbers, which is a very unwise way to make a decision about
Right.
higher education. And that's one of the things that I really focus on with the families that I work with. In 2015, there was a young man who was accepted to all 8 Ivy Leagues, Stanford, John Hopkins, and several others. I can't remember. His name is Ronald Nelson. Someone can look it up if they want to. So all 8 Ivy Leagues and these top tier schools. At the end of the day, he accepted the offer from the University of Alabama.
Okay. Oh, now you're gonna make me go look this up, because okay, why did we do that? I'm not saying that the University of Alabama is bad. What I'm asking is what made him choose that?
Okay. There was there was a set of circumstances that existed then that do not exist now, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about that later. But at the time, he had an older sister who was enrolled in school, and at that point, you got what's called a multi-student discount for having more than one child in school at the same time. That went away this year with the disastrous FAFSA, which hopefully we'll get to focus on a little bit. But he and his family calculated out how much it would cost once they lost that. And the other schools, the Ivy Leagues and all those, were only going to give him so much money. The University of Alabama, which also gave him a seat in their honors college, offered him a full ride for the full 4 years. So it was a no-brainer. And for those who may think, oh, that was a really dumb decision, what is he going to do after that? Yeah, he ended up at Columbia School of Medicine, so don't worry, he's fine. He's still going, at the end of the day, he's still going to have the precious Ivy League degree. He just doesn't have the debt. And one of the things I didn't mention with, with my experience with my daughter, she had initially wanted to be an architect, but then she changed to education into teaching. So she knew she was never going to make any money. Through planning, and I will say a series of very fortunate events, she ended up graduating at 22 with a master's degree in special education and $0 in debt. Now,
that.
what did that do for her as a teacher? So she makes no money. But her second year of teaching, she said, Easter break's coming up, and I don't think I just want to sit in the apartment, sit at home and just do nothing. So I think I'm going to Armenia. Okay, sounds like a plan. She had the freedom to do that. If she'd had a boatload of debt on a teacher's salary, she wouldn't have been able to do that. She travels, to Europe, whenever she wants to, because she has that freedom. So that's an important thing people need to ask themselves, is like, not just what do you want to do to earn a living? What do you want to do with the wages that you earn?
Yeah. Yes, I agree with that. I think that the first part, when we were growing up, it was, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you, and trying to help us focus on that. Some of the conversations I've been having lately, I noticed that education is more like a sorting process. People are sorting you in these different buckets to determine who you're going to be, much like that test where, I seen this one video where I forget where they were, but it was somewhere in Asia, and they will put the babies down. They will all put the babies down like behind this line, and then they will put very specific things, tools of the craft in front of them, right? A stethoscope, a basketball, different things like that. And then whatever the child gravitated towards as that baby, as that crawling baby, that's what they would pour all of their resources and their efforts to focus in on what was attractive to that child during that exercise, right? So I recognize that school is kind of like the sorting process. What can you do? What can you do? What can you do? And then what direction we can kind of send you in. So I feel like a lot of times education doesn't pull out what we would like to pull out, we would like to get out of it, because it's a bigger system that we're a part of. We're a cog in a wheel, and our participation is important for the next step. And sometimes the next step is not always very visible to us, right? So like in your example, he went to a college and people were like, no, if you got accepted into all of these, why not just take the debt? Because that wasn't the best thing for him. And he ended up somewhere anyway. And he still was able, because he was smart wherever he was going to go. That the ones that had the higher price tag says, I want you to be smart in debt. And he was like, let me show you how smart I am. I'm going to be smart with no debt. And then I'm still going to come into and get an Ivy League, certificate or whatever, degree, just so everybody can feel comfortable with the fact that I did attend an Ivy League school, right? It's very interesting how that works out.
Yeah, no, it really is. And, again, it's not to knock the Ivy Leagues, although there is one that I would knock if I could, but I don't like to be sued, so I won't do that. But it's just that, for example, my daughter, she's going to crucify me for continually bringing her up.
I got to.
But as a teacher, when she went on her first demo, she'd interviewed and they called her back for a demo. The principal of the school replied that, wow, for a brand new teacher, you have a really deep toolkit there. She attended a school that a lot of people aren't aware of, but the reason why she selected that school was we went there, we saw what their program, they had an excellent education, school of education. And the other thing people need to think about, no matter what a school's reputation is, there are those, particularly if you're talking about a university, because it has all of its colleges, the overall university may not have a great ranking, but the particular college of what you want to major in may be at the top of the field. So, don't myopia is not something to engage in when you're looking at higher education. It's you need to really examine the information that's important, not what people tell you, but what what your vision and your plans are. I tell people the same tools that Jamie Dimon or any other CEO uses to make a decision about whether or not to launch this new product or change the fees or that, those business decision-making tools are what individuals should be using for college. So you should be looking at return on investment. You should be looking at cost benefit analysis. You should be doing a SWOT analysis on the school and yourself to give yourself a really good picture of what you need to do in terms of that. And that's, in addition to being well prepared for that. And that's something that I hope we can get into, because that's, as I said, schools can't do it all. So,
right. Actually, we're getting ready to do that too. We're starting that conversation about the colleges again, because I've had to go through it a couple of times. And so sometimes some colleges are not meant for all students, right? You may have a student at home that's really, really smart, but definitely has some other challenges. You may not want to put them in certain schools because they don't have what they need. So I love the fact that you said just make it, identify what you want to receive out of it. I think a lot of times for me, both my children, I told them, I'm not pushing you to go to school. And the reason why I don't push you to go to school is because I've witnessed so many students go into school and waste time. I'm not saying that I don't agree with a college education. That's not what it is. But because they are in that rhythm of just going to school, it's okay. But when they don't know what they want to do, it's still okay. But now you're starting to take money out of the household because you don't know what to do, and you're racking up unnecessary debt because you still don't know what you want to do. So I was like, we have to figure out some of this stuff before you go. And then when you're in there, if you start fooling around, you only got 2 years on me, the rest of it's on you. And that's just kind of how I looked at it. But my thing is that I wish that what happened to the trades, because a lot of us are pointing towards the 2 and a 4 year degree. But what happens to the trades? The trades is a big thing that used to be. You would teach people how to work with their hands or use the skill set that is best close to them, and for them to be able to successfully support themselves and their families. But we're such a big push for higher education in that way that it doesn't open up the door for trade schools. So I'm kind of curious about that. Could that be part of your offering or what you help families to understand?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The trades have changed a little bit over the years because so much has become digitized and computerized that you kind of need some baseline understanding of that. But for example, at the end of January, I run what's called a career speaker series, where I bring professionals in to talk about the education training and for their career that is needed. And how it's changed over time, because let's face it, the world is changing really fast. And the last speaker that I had in January is an expert in cybersecurity, which of course is a blooming field. And as he explained, yes, you can go and you can go to college, you can get a degree, and you can come out and make a lot of money. But there's also certifications in that, which you can go and take those courses and do that, earn those certifications, start in cybersecurity, and still make a really, really good, solid income. And if you keep those skills up and you continue, not necessarily, you can go to college if you choose to later, but as long as you keep up with the changing field and you keep up with your certifications, six figures is definitely not outside the realm of possibilities. So while I think one of the things, let me backtrack for one of the things that upsets me a little bit about how we approach higher education, is that it's solely for career preparation,
Yeah.
which it very much is, but there's so much more benefit to be gained from attending college than just that. I mean, there was a time when people, I mean, if you think back in the 1800s, women went to college and they had no reasonable expectation of a career. But the difference was they were all from wealthy families, and college did not cost an arm and leg like it does now. So yes, it's a lot of money to shell out to gain those experiences, but I think those experiences gained in college um
Oh,
are beneficial for the rest of life, because let's face it, for many young students, for some people it's the first time they've left their immediate area. It's the
mhm.
first time that they're experiencing a world outside of their strong little nucleus. So I think there are benefits to attending college that go beyond career um, preparation, and you can gain some ancillary skills that are portable by just being on campus and participating in other events, because there are other things that go on outside of the classroom. And I think we need to keep that in mind when it comes to college and higher education.
My take on college is this: at home, from 0 to 18, you have complete bumpers up for your kids. All of our children, we got the bumpers up, and they're like, don't go too far to the left, don't go too far to the right, so you don't get in trouble, right? So those bumpers are there to protect them. What college does is it allows them, it's bumpers partially up, right? That's how I
Right.
say it. It's partially up, because now I have invited a new co-parent that's more hands off, but still allows the child to have a structure around their lives. So when they're out there making these decisions, that they can feel comfortable that they're making them decisions on their own, but that there is support around them to ensure that they have a safety net of sorts so they can be caught. Because unfortunately, and fortunately, because they are the same, the world the world does not hold a safety net for any of us. So if you don't figure out a lot of your stuff between 0 and 25 or 26 years of age, you will go out there and you just see people just like falling apart every which way because they just didn't figure out how to make that work. And so that's how I look at college. College is just the extension of our household without me having to make the decisions for you. And that comes with a safety net, because I had complete bumpers and making sure you were never going to be hurt before you made it to there. So college actually allows for that. I'm going to say that I look it up and I wanted to make sure we said it, but for a law school student, law school debt is $132,740. Okay. To be a medical student or a doctor, anybody medical school debt is what it says. This is a nerd wallet. It says $206,924. That's
Right.
debt.
Right. Yeah. No, that certainly sounds right on point. And going back to Mr. Nelson, this is the reason I used to refer to him as the smartest man in America, because he avoided all of that undergraduate debt. Now, I don't know what his family had to do when he got to medical school, but at least at that point, he didn't already have the beginning baggage of the undergraduate debt. I would imagine he probably had to take out some loans, but it wasn't compounded by that undergraduate debt. And again, if you're going to take on debt, think about what your income prospects are. It's one thing if you're going to be a neurosurgeon. If you're going to be a social worker, which is certainly an admirable occupation, you can't take on $220,000 debt. It's what I call, what I tagged several years ago with the high cost of education as a well-constructed way to have a highly educated permanent underclass.
Okay. Oh, good Lord. That's not good.
No, it's not good because you've got highly educated people that are working, that are productive, that are contributing to society, but they can't get the baggage of the student debt off their back. So they're limited. That doesn't mean that they don't maintain a reasonable standard of living, but it
Yeah.
certainly isn't what it should be if they didn't have that
Right.
debt bag that they were carrying around with them.
Right. So you bring up this point. So I like the way you approach this, because there's not very often we go into these things and we say, what is the ROI, or what is my expected outcome of that? I agree with Dr. Constance. Dr. Leland, you are absolutely correct. I think education should be free. I don't understand why we're doing that. So we're going right into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, was that because of this debt, you offer a way for families to not have all of this debt and still send their children off to school successfully. So what are some of the steps that you can share with our listeners about what parents can do and things like that, as far as this is concerned? Because if I could do it without debt, I would do it again. Because I want to go and potentially be a lawyer, but $135,000 in debt, I'm not interested in taking on that debt.
Well, one of the things, and I will say, even though I was pretty good when my daughter was in school, I didn't realize until she was out of school, she was in college, but I didn't realize that there are actually college scholarships that start as early as middle school, because I would have been applying for those. But I didn't know. You can't do what you don't know.
Right.
Generally speaking, they tend not to be as large as, the Foot Locker $20,000. But if you get $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 over that 4-year period, and you continue to add that up, so yeah, you can start applying for scholarships starting in middle school and going all the way through high school. You do not have to wait until your child's a junior or senior in high school. There's a blog post on my website that has not a full list, but has a starter list of scholarships for younger students. People can go and look at that. So that's one thing. The other thing is position your students, your young people, to look as attractive as they possibly can for prospective colleges, so that you can get the aid package. And let me take that back. The scholarships from them. I was asked to contribute to an article for an online publication a couple of months ago, and how being right isn't all it's cracked up to be. Sadly, they confirmed for me something that I was saying, is this really happening? Was observing high schools. A lot of students believe that something as simple as community service is only valuable if you're applying to an Ivy League or a Stanford or something like that. They truly, and this is across the board. I can't even say this is, inner city schools or anything. This is across the board in this country. That
That's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of high schools are just not letting students know what they really need to be attractive to school, to colleges. And, again, the other benefit, aside from the community and the societal benefit of volunteering, of doing community service is early networking.
Oh, what?
You get, if you're volunteering at a hospital, if you're volunteering in a business, if you're doing this, you get to meet people. You never know where one of those connections could end up being a mentor or provide some benefit somewhere down the road. So the more people you know, the more people you interact with, the greater your chance. Build your network early.
Build your network early. I want to say this one thing. So I got a person, Troy, the world would not lose but improve if education was free. That's what he's saying. So ultimately, if you would open up education. So one of the things I'm going to say is I'm going to challenge that comment. And the reason why I'm going to challenge the comment is because, yes, the world would improve, but only if education improved. Because currently, right now, this is exactly correct. So if education was free and was effective for all, or for at least greater number than 60%, then I do believe that that the world would improve. But if you keep the educational level where it is currently today, where we are all where a lot of us are saying this is unacceptable, the return on my investment is not what I expected, and I do not like the check that I've received in return for the money I've sent you, right? So therefore, the one thing that has to improve is that, yes, please give us education for free, but then allow us, the taxpayers, to determine what that education is what that education needs to look like for the outcome that we want to have. Because that, I think, is what part of the problem is that our education system is not providing our students with the ability to, and there you go, great, now you get it, free quality universal education. That makes sense. And
Yes.
that's what should be happening, because I don't want to ever give anybody the impression, okay, if we give you free education, you can come on, everybody's going to get this education and everything's going to be great. That's not true. What happens is you don't put the right stuff in. Garbage in gives you garbage out, period. There's no way out. You put lipstick on a pig, guess what? It's still a pig. The bottom line is we have to improve the bottom line in order to get out what we want. So thank you very much for that comment. So I get that for sure. But the fact is, a lot of people were looking at this and saying they can go to school and they can get educated, free education in some cases, based on them doing the work prior to getting started. But how does this impact, or how is this going to be helpful for trade schools, things like that? Like, how do we get some of the students who don't, maybe like the 40% who don't go to school, don't go to college? How do we get them in trade schools?
The thing of it is that it's a mindset. You have to, whether it's a state university or Harvard or a trade school, you have to value education. And that's the reason I tell people to encourage people to encourage your children to be as curious as possible, to open them up to the world. And in terms of, I was thinking this morning, I remember when I was in high school and I went to a little shishi private school. And one of my classmates was talking about some really obnoxious, derogatory comment that his father, and I forget what he did, but he was up there. Derogatory comment he had made to the janitor because he said, because it's such a zero job. I said, really? It's such a zero job? I said, well, I tell you what, you let him not show up for a week, and then let's see what a zero job your father thinks it is. Get back to me and let me know. So we have to we have to understand, to your point that we're all part of the machinery. If one gear breaks down, then the whole thing falls apart. So yeah, not everybody can be a CEO. Not everybody wants to be a CEO. Not everybody wants to be a neurosurgeon but you still, within those businesses, you still need those that are under them, and in the buildings that they work, they need their plumbing to work. They need their electricity to work.
Yes.
You need, without that, I mean, we think of all the storms we had over the last several years when you're without electricity and gas. Those things are important. We depend on those things as much as we do food and water. And without them, it's a problem. So it is this devaluing of
Yes.
professions
That. Yeah.
that is the thing that we need to stop, because yeah, that's, and again, even if you go to a trade school and whatever it is, whether you're a plumber or electrician, anything like that, I still say, even if you don't get the degree, to your point about taking the bumpers and things off, I think a college experience is good for a year or two, but it doesn't have to be right away.
Yeah.
It does not have to be right away. So,
Yeah.
again,
I didn't go to
those
school right away.
understanding that, yeah, learning how to do whatever, to the point that I made the gentleman before, that I was speaking about, that did the cybersecurity. Yeah, you can earn a degree in that, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
You can be certificated, and let's face it, talking about as essential as food and water and air, cybersecurity is desperately needed right now. I mean, every day we read about another hack, another attack, so cybersecurity.
Who goes after a children's hospital? I'm like, what are we doing? So that's wrong. And so that lets you know. I wanted to say though, one of the stats I wanted to say was that one Black teacher, if students have representation in their classroom, the amount of impact it has is significant, right? So the studies say that if you add one Black teacher by the age of third grade, that increases their high school graduation by 7%, and then 13% to enroll in a college. But when you add two Black teachers in a child's life, and that's regardless of race, okay, it improves absenteeism, period, across the board. And then it increases the college enrollment to 32%. So there is something to be said about the people that is in front of the room that's teaching you K through 12 that will help you go into the next stage of your child's life, which is whatever pathway they choose. They can choose to be a doctor, they can choose to be a plumber, they can choose to be a janitor. Let's talk a little bit about that janitor part. Over the summer, I had the privilege to be able to support another business owner. So we went into schools when everyone was gone. So all about a janitor, I think this one decided he or she was no longer going to work. Because when I walked into this classroom, I was 100% disgusted, upset, irritated, and a plethora of other feelings. Why? I walked in a room. First of all, you walk into school, the lights are dark. It's darker in there. I mean, I know we're in there we're working on what we had in front of us, but that doesn't, the lights are the lights. We go in the classroom, flip the light on. Those lights should be, lights that are like, okay, we're ready for you, but those lights were not. Then the other thing I noticed was this is summertime. They're already gone. We're not sharing space with these students. Okay. Dirt bunnies, like the dust bunnies, the trash things on the floor, the tables and chairs in a disarray. When you move things away from the wall, it was gross and nasty. Now I understand behind the wall, between a wall and a piece of furniture, but what about around or underneath the tables where the students are sitting? It was not an environment that would encourage a student to say, yes, I want to go to school and learn as much as I want to learn from this dirty room, and nobody's taking out the trash, and I can probably smell the lunch from yesterday, right? And so janitors are definitely a part of the ecosystem. So how dare us say that one job is less than another job? So we as the adults need to stop devaluing people, period, across the board, because when we devalue people, their positions follow with them. So, oh, he was just a plumber, or he was just a janitor. No, you have some of the smartest people driving cabs. You have some of the smartest people pushing a broom, and you have some of the smartest people that are homeless. And that is because we as the ones, the leaders in the room, are saying, oh, it's just that. That's why I don't like that word. That thing bothers me.
Yeah, no, it is so true. And to your point, many, many years ago, I am never one, well, King Charles now, but he was Prince Charles at the time. I'm never one to feel sorry for him, except I will say he was doing one of his tours at a homeless shelter in they followed around, and he sat in this room, and then they did their little talk and discussion, and then this one guy hung back. And he said, "Is there something you'd like to ask me? Is there something you didn't get to say when the others were in the room?" And the gentleman looked at him and said, "You don't remember me, do you?" And you could see the wheels of his mind thinking, "Okay, he must have been in another shelter that I visited last month, and he's trying to place it." And the guy looked at him and said, "We were at Eton together." They had gone to grammar school together. And so the or I think it's Eton, but whatever the grammar school was that he attended. So, to your point, you just never know how you start out may not necessarily be you're not going to be in the same place. There's some twists and turns in life. And so here was this man who was in grammar school with the royal family, and there he is in a homeless shelter.
I know what. So, yes, that. Now, okay, I would love that would be nice to understand what that was like or what happened to get you. Why is it such a difference? I think it's access. And that goes back to the barrier to entry. So, the barrier to entry is not always financial, it's actually systemic, right? So, there
Hmm.
are biases that are in place that actually don't allow for students to attend either specific colleges or college period. And K through 12, that's why for you, I know people are like, well, Tabitha primarily talks about K through 12 student safety. Yes, but this is also safety, right? Because if you look at it, K through 12 prepares you for what's happening next. So if you can't get the safety stuff taken care of and get them to understand that their life is worth, way more than, that $1 million that somebody else has placed on their heads, then how are you going to get them to become to see their worth in going to the college that would feed them what is necessary for them to be a great contributor to our society, right? And so when you look at that, if the systemic barriers are says that we don't want these groups of people to attend our college, so we'll raise the bar so we don't allow them to be coming in, or we sneakily say, go ahead and we'll receive your application in, but redline you to push you to the side so you never receive what you need as far as education is concerned. That becomes problematic. So the reason why I bring that up, I'm asking, is there things that we as parents should be looking for that will potentially help us to identify this early enough to kind of make a change? Or what should we do about those situations when we encounter them? Do you know?
Well,
It's okay to not know.
yeah, I really don't have an answer for that specific question, but I'm going to jump back to something you were talking about a little bit earlier about having a Black teacher in a classroom, or because I am in such a diverse area, a Latina teacher, or a Muslim. There's something else, because sometimes for whatever reason, because of location and that's not as easy as it would be just because of the population that's available. I mean, there are still areas that are still fairly homogenous, where you have one or two Latino families or one or two Black families, and you don't have a pool of candidates to pull from
Mhm.
to have that representation. I don't always fault the school system. However, what I will fault them for are what my former coworker, blonde hair and blue eyed, referred to as suffering from a melanin deficiency. Um, in front of the classroom, make sure that they aren't exacerbating or contributing to the problem. I don't, because you're so involved in this. So you probably saw last year there were in two different places. I don't remember the states, but there were two young girls who wanted to do their book reports, their stories on Bessie Coleman, the
Mm,
aviator. And they were told that they couldn't because she wasn't an appropriate hero.
but
Excuse me?
why?
You know why.
Oh, I know why. I get it. But I'm just saying, I'm like, my very first response is, what? So,
Yeah, so this is the kind of thing, again, there are those who are in front of the classroom who may not be representative, but can be supportive and encouraging and informative and willing to learn. And then there are those who just exacerbate the problem and want to continue that. So that's really what parents need to keep an eye out for is, because I don't
oh,
necessarily,
yes.
yeah, who the teacher really look for those little signals
Yes.
that
I get you.
send that send a message. And I did this when my daughter was in school. I had known a principal for years. And I said, "Have I ever called you to complain about a teacher?" She said, "No, you never have." I said, "Well, that's about to change." And my biggest complaint with her was not something directly affecting my daughter. It was the way she was speaking about other students. It was the way she was talking, particularly about Black boys. And I say, this is unacceptable. This cannot be. So fortunately for me, I was the mother of the town crier, so I heard everything that happened in school.
Everybody has a position and a role to play, my friend.
Yeah, so she was the town crier. So I would be, again, um, this was not directly about her. It wasn't, but it was things that yeah. So these are the things. It's those little signals that they feel perfectly comfortable making and saying they don't even think about it. But who are you to say who a child's hero is?
I know. And so now that you say that, I realize that so it's going to start in K through 12. It's going to start in 11th and 12th grade where they start to groom the student and say, so parents, this is my suggestion. Watch out for those instances where your child is excited to go to a very specific school only to come back and change their mind because someone so said that would not be the best place for me, right? And so investigate where they want to go, and then investigate why it would not be a good place for them. Because in all actuality, a lot of people don't realize it, but the your high school teachers actually help you to identify the school of your choice based on where you are. And if they have a built-in bias already, they're not going to send you to the school you want to go to or you think that you should go to. They're going to send you to the school that they feel as though they want you to go to, and then their intentions may not be your intentions. So we really have to be paying attention to what our children are saying. So that's the part where we really have to start listening, and it's active listening, paying attention to the behaviors. If your kid is like, I want to go to, I'm from Pittsburgh, so University of Pittsburgh, I want to go to University of Pittsburgh, or I want to go to A&M and this is where I want to go. And then all of a sudden they come home and they're like, well, I'm not going to go to University of Pittsburgh. But nobody ever says anything. Nobody says, well, why? What happened? What changed? And they don't, you got to dig into that because
Absolutely.
somebody said
Absolutely.
something. And I'm going to tell you my experience. I had a teacher tell my child that I was out to do harm to him and to not listen to anything I said as a 12th grader. So your mom does not have your best interest at heart. You need to go and find stuff elsewhere. Meanwhile, I have contorted my whole entire life to support this kid and make sure that he had the best of everything. And in one fatal swoop, they turned his life upside down, and we are still struggling to regain it 5 years later. So parents, pay attention, because your co-parent, if does not have the same intention as you have, they can change your child's trajectory and you will be none the wiser. And by the time you figure it out, it's kind of hard to call back that bell, because you can't unring that bell. You can't, because now you're fighting a different fight. And I fight this fight and it's terrible. I'm like, seriously? That's the one person you chose to listen to? I've been here the whole entire time and this is what you do? But they have an influence, because as we talk about, kids are away from us for 2,600 hours a year, right? That's a lot of time for somebody else to pour into your child what they want and take out what you want. So be mindful of that.
Yeah, be very mindful of that, because to piggyback off of that, as I said, I went to a little shishi private school for high school. It was a college prep private school. The guidance counselor there told one of my classmates, and mind you, he was the third or fourth brother that had gone to that school. So the family had a history in that school, but he looked like
Yeah.
me. And her, never mind which college, she told him he should really think about applying to was it the shipping department in Macy's or something like that? Oh, yeah. She regretted that, because daddy was there the next day. And so yeah, having just make sure your child feels comfortable talking to you about these things.
Right.
And listen to your child, and then also talk with other parents.
Yeah.
They can also be a good source of information, because again, maybe not everyone had the town crier for a child as I. So doesn't mean you're a bad parent. It's just every child is different and they don't necessarily like to share things, but other children will share things with your parents. So as if you don't have time to be part of the BQMT or the PTA or something, just have little conversations. Even if you're in the supermarket, if you're online at wherever you shop, have these little conversations. You'd be surprised how many little nuggets come out in a simple conversation, and you can find you'll see there's a common thread that runs through. So yeah, always, as a parent, you always have to have your ears open, not just to your child, but to those around your child.
This is very true. So as we go ahead and wrap up, I'm going to say 44% of our students are actually reporting depression. 37% report anxiety. That is also associated into college enrollment. So keep in mind, if they're depressed and having lots of anxiety K through 12, they're gonna, if we don't help and resolve, it will roll into their college experience. 90% of students are sleep deprived and a year and a half behind in education. So that would be another reason why that barrier to entry becomes a little bit more. Therese, I want to make sure that there's a couple people I want you to reach out to, and they're here today. I do want to say this one guy, he's funny. I know a guy people have referred to as a genius that does Uber and Amazon Flex. This guy has designed things that could change the world. Please do not underestimate the people in your lives at any given stage, because you have no clue what is going on in the back end. So Phil Vetrano is a good person for you to know and meet. You two will work really well together, I think, especially because you're doing a lot more support in the way you kind of move. And then Ann Sullivan is another. Those are two people that I want to connect you with, because I think that you are definitely a complement to what those two offer. So anybody looking for college prep, college planning, and then making themselves differentiate themselves from other students who are enrolling in the same programs, those are two people these are three people that I strongly recommend that you reach out and connect with. So go ahead and make this and go ahead and let people know how to find you and everything like that as we go ahead and wrap up.
Okay, I am going to put my website in the chat if I can cure my digital dyslexia. Very simple. It's very simple. It's Teshley.com. The company is Teshley Solutions LLC. I think you can see the Teshley there. Tabitha was good enough to put up the LinkedIn thing. And just before we go, I'm going to try to see. I haven't done StreamYard in a while. I'm going to see if I can pick, because I just want to show this one when we were talking about being selective when it comes to the schools and the rankings and things. I just want to share this one slide for one moment. I
Okay.
hope everyone can see it. Is that visible?
There you go.
Okay. So if you look at the top, it gives you the percentage numbers, and if you look on the bottom, it gives you the years. This is the intense manipulation that goes on in the mindset of people, because right here, in here, you had this high number, and then right in here is when US News and World Report started publishing their rankings. And then as it got popular, you can see that precipitous drop
Whoa.
in as it became accepted as the Bible. It's the same school. It's the same. This is Yale. It's the same school that it's always been. But this is the mindset manipulation that I'm talking about. This is the kind of natty nonsense that goes on. I've compared all of them. Again, the thing to think about is that even though there's been a pullback in college attendance, compared to where it was 40 years ago, there's a much higher percentage of people applying to college. And then there's the general growth of the population. Most of these schools offer the same exact number of seats that they did in 1980. So of
Oh
course
wow.
their numbers are going to decline. It's
Okay, I
you
get
don't
you.
have to be John Nash to figure this one out.
You got jokes. That's funny. I thank you very much for your time today. I thank you for spending it with me.
I
I
thank
hope,
you for having me. I hope it was beneficial to those who attended.
well, no, it's going to be planned. People are going to watch it because at the end of the day, everybody would like to send their children to school and not have to pay that debt. So if you're looking to send your student to school, please go ahead and reach out to Miss Edwards so she can support you and help you. And then we can connect you with other people. So remember, as normal, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate the support and look forward to you visiting us again next week, same time, same place. Until then, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. If you have an interest but like to be on our live show, please let us know and send us a direct message. Oh my gosh, what the heck?